Hey everybody, it's Quinton from Hunters of Light again today. Another presentation. This time we've got Erlo Brown. He is going to give us some fantastic information on his walk from, well, border to border and then Cape to Namibia and et cetera, et cetera. And I think it's going to be absolutely fantastic. I can't wait for you guys to hear his stories. From our sort of chats that we've had so far, it's just like quite an unassuming, cool guy. So I think it's going to come across quite nicely and be a good preso. So, hello, over to you.
Thank you, Quentin.
In fact, maybe what I should do is the first thing I should say is, well, first of all, welcome. But
thank you.
What have you been doing in the lockdown period? I'm assuming you're also not essential services and not be able to work and that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's been tough, Quentin. To be honest with you, my business basically fell apart during the first week of lockdown, I must say. I think it's the same for most photographers. And I realized immediately, look, you probably have to do something else now. So I've been doing the odd stock photograph here and there, just at home, whatever I can do in the studio, adding that onto my stock portfolio and so on. And it's been ticking over. I don't know if you have any stock, but stock's been doing really well, my stock photography at least lately. I don't know why. I think everyone's starting a blog or something because I keep selling the same photographs.
And everyone wants to have pictures of they can superimpose themselves over.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's something that I have to say I haven't really done very much stock photography. I don't know why it's been something that hasn't really been on my radar. But So I'm glad it's doing well for you.
Yes, I was very fortunate to get into it quite early. I was probably in my second year of studying photography at TUT when it might have been my third year actually, come to think about it. And we went on an internship. Each of us had to go to a different professional photographer for a week or something. And I was very lucky to be with Adam Houghton. You might know him.
Yeah.
He's a commercial photographer in Johannesburg. And so he taught me a lot of stuff over the week. We shot whatever. But the one piece of information that he gave me that is by far the most valuable was to use your downtime to still make money using stock photography. And I've been doing that ever since. I think this was 2012, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Or earlier even. And I've been doing that ever since then. So I've been building up quite a good portfolio, and I've made decent money doing it. It's just a small income, but it's still something, Yeah.
Yes, it's something that you don't have to sort of manage every day. It just happens while in the background. Absolutely. While you're doing other stuff.
Absolutely. You don't touch it. Sometimes I don't touch it for more than a year, and then I come back to it when it's locked down again.
Yeah, absolutely. No, well, that's cool. So yeah, I mean, I'm certainly excited to see your images and hear about the story. So over to you. You can share your screen and let's start the journey.
Tell me if you can see this.
There we go.
There we go.
Perfect.
Right. So where to start? Let me maybe start with my very first walk. So just for the viewers that might not know, I've done two major walks, and these aren't hitchhiking walks. These are literally step for step walking with my own 2 feet. And the first walk was from Mozambique to Namibia, so the border of South Africa and Mozambique, along the coastline, all the way to the border of South Africa and Namibia. At the time, I was 21 years old when I started, and a lot of people always ask you, why would you do something like this? And it's a very difficult thing to really answer because obviously there isn't just one thing that you have to consider before you do something like this. But I think the short answer would be because I knew I had to do something that I haven't been able to do, and something that would limit me, or let me say, challenge me in a way that would really test me to the limit. And I was know whether I would be able to finish my first walk. Day 2 was probably the hardest day that I ever had in my whole life. I was completely out of my depth. I started with, for anyone that's ever done a 1 or 2 day walk, I started with 55 kilograms worth of stuff. To put that in perspective, that's literally like 2/3 of me on my back, you know, on soft sand. So it just didn't work.
And how much of that was your camera gear?
My camera gear was quite heavy, relatively speaking. The big problem with camera gear on the coast is you can't keep it exposed. You can't just use any old camera bag, because if you do, it might get wet. The salt air obviously affects it. You have the sand, which is a big problem, especially when the wind starts blowing. So I had a storm case. I actually have it with me here. This is still the same old storm case. It's been through hell and back. And that storm case has seen every single corner of the South African coastline, and some of it quite a few times. That same storm case has actually been to Antarctica with a friend of mine. Unfortunately, I couldn't join.
Wow. So, did you ever have to use it as a flotation device?
My camera did. Yeah, that actually happened. I was busy photographing, doing some long exposures the one time on rocks somewhere in Natal. I can't remember exactly where. And well, I had my camera with me, but it still had a lens or whatever else was in the storm case. And this rogue wave came up onto the rocks and took my storm case with it. Luckily, it got stuck between another rock, so I could retrieve it. But I literally saw my storm case floating away. That was scary.
That's crazy.
So let me show you some photographs. Quentin, if you want to stop me and ask me anything, you're more than welcome to. I'm just going to share what I'm showing you. All right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's fine. You carry on, and as you know, as questions come up in the group, I'll pass them on to you. And if you know, if I've got a question, I'll definitely jump in. I'll try not to interrupt you too much.
Sure. So I think the first question is, who's the dog, or why are you walking with the dog? That's a big deal. Well, a big part of the first walk was walking with my dog. I was still very young, completely naive. I hadn't even spent a night by myself before I started walking. So you can just picture that. I was still a child. I'm not even shy to admit that. And I thought maybe it's a good idea to have a companion, and a dog is the perfect companion. So I got this rescue Border Collie from Border Collie Rescue. And I must say, she was just fantastic. Her name's Zeta. Unfortunately, she passed away a couple of years ago. And she walked most of the way with me, except for the very, very first part and the very, very last part, because of the parks and the regulations that they have along there. But she pretty much did like 90% of the walk with me. Here's a photo. This is a place that is very close to my heart. This is in the Eastern Cape. This waterfall is called Waterfall Bluff. Now, you can't really tell the scale from this photograph because it was taken with a wide angle. So the person in the foreground is actually me. I shot it using a remote control. But that waterfall is, I think it's 91 meters high. So it's huge. And it's, as far as I remember, it's only one of 2 waterfalls in the southern hemisphere that fall directly into the ocean.
What's
fantastic place.
What's the shutter on that? How long was that open for?
I would have to take a guess. I would say maybe 4 seconds.
Okay.
I wouldn't think more than 10 seconds. Then it would have been too bright. Yeah. It was raining. This was in a torrential storm. The only reason I took the photograph from there was because my camera could stand underneath that you see the
overhang. Yeah, absolutely.
The overhang, yes. Yeah. Not the hangover, what am I saying?
Well, you might have had a hangover. I don't know.
No, I didn't. I wish I did. All right. Here's another photograph of me, not far from that waterfall, also on the Wild Coast. I have to apologize to me without a shirt on a few times. And you're going to see a lot of photographs of my feet in terrible states. I just have a thing with photographing feet. And obviously, when you go on a journey like this, there's always a subject matter to photograph. I mean, if you're a landscape photographer, you'll find landscapes. If you enjoy documentary or portraiture or whatever, you'll find your subject matter. But for me, it was unfortunately, I only realized this maybe a month into my walk. I was the subject. I was the story being told, and it's quite a eye-opening place to be, because I don't necessarily like being in the limelight. But shortly after I started, I realized that I'm a landscape photographer, first and foremost. I would say I love landscapes, and that's partly why I walked or started walking. But I realized that the landscapes were just empty. You know, it could have been anyone's landscape that just drove there and photographed it. I had to tell the story of this journey of me and my dog. Yeah, so you'll see me in quite a few of the photographs. This particular photograph was taken in a hut in the Eastern Cape. Beautiful people that you meet along the wild coast, so warm-hearted. This family literally shared a part of their hut with me, and the next morning before I set off again, my dog was still fast asleep. I thought I could just take a photograph inside the hut on the plastic chair. That was literally the only piece of furniture they had in the entire house. It was this plastic chair.
And was the light coming through the doorway, or was there a little window there?
Yeah, so you'll see during my first walk, I used a lot of off-camera flash.
Okay.
This is off-camera flash. It's very harsh. I was still playing around with the tool. In fact, so you must remember, just to put this in perspective, this photograph was taken with a Canon 30D, right? So it's a crop sensor, and I don't know where we're sitting now. Are we on 80 or 90D?
So 90D actually, yeah, 90D.
Is it? All right. Okay. So that I don't even know what we're on anymore with the crop sensors, and you couldn't do remote flash control then. At least you couldn't do ETTL. So this was literally a sync cable that I jerry-rigged to have two male ports, I believe, to go into the camera and into the flash, and that's how I used it. I used a lot of that during the first walk. You'll see.
Is that how you lit that previous portrait of you, where you were lit from the front?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right. This is also using off-camera flash, and I still use a lot of off-camera flash, just not that setup. I'm currently using my Godox with hexagon softbox and so on. Yeah.
Cool.
There you see it again, the off-camera flash. This is my dog Zeta. Really a fantastic dog. She had the ability to win over people even when I couldn't. So she literally found places for us to sleep sometimes. I think in total during this first walk, we spent 74 nights with strangers in their houses. And I would have to say at least half of those, she approached the people.
Fantastic.
Yeah, you know, so she would be a catalyzer for me to kind of talk to people. They would see, okay, I'm on a mission, what am I doing? And then they would, you know, evolve from there. They would invite us in for the night, give us a meal and whatever. Yeah.
I love it. Very cool.
Yeah. This photograph was taken, I think this was on day 5. Now, this is very early still in the journey. The journey lasted about 300 days. I think it was exactly 299 days. That's including getting quite a severe injury in my foot one time that I had to take some time off for, and also getting tick bite fever that I had to take a week off for. And this photograph was taken one morning early, literally maybe 2 or 3 meters away from the entrance of my tent. I saw this snake. I believe it's a whip snake, an olive whip snake. This was on the Natal coast, the north coast. It didn't mean any harm, and I just left it there, ate my dinner or my breakfast, and went on my way again.
So here's a
question.
Sure. So I'm assuming you took some form of medical kit with you, but as far as emergency phone call, what was it? A normal cell phone, or was it?
Well,
nothing?
Yeah, back then it was a BlackBerry, eh?
It would take you just 5 minutes to type a message, man.
Yeah, I know, right? To tell you the truth, I actually kept the blog with my BlackBerry. I was very nifty with those little buttons. No, yeah. So it was literally along the South African coast. You actually have very good reception. Even 10 years ago, it wasn't that bad. I might have had 3 days without any reception at most. But my family and friends knew what I was doing. They knew roughly where I would be. So when you're walking, the distances are between 20 and 40 kilometers a day. So it's very easy to pinpoint where the person might be if he did go missing or something happened. Yeah. Right, here's another photograph of me again. This was at the Kelder, very close to where I live currently. This is close to Hermanus. And it looks quite impressive, but it's not that high. It's only like 5 or 6 meters high. Yes.
Very cool. I think the one thing about having yourself in the pictures is that it also helps with some of the landscapes to show, human scale in the environment. As
Absolutely.
You said, it's not just a landscape that someone has shot and there it is, but it shows a bit of scale. And also, it's your story. It's got to have you in it. Yes. Some of them, at least.
Right. And I mean, this photograph would have been pretty good without me in it jumping off the cliff. But it tells a little bit of a story, more of a story than just an empty landscape might have. This is me after, I believe, about 9 months of walking. And you can see that the sun really got to me. I've never been that brown in my life. My hair hasn't been that long either. So, yeah. This is another photograph of me and my tent. So it might be interesting for people to note that I started on a very small budget when I did walk. So a lot of photographers, photography is a very, very expensive game. It doesn't matter what level of photography you're in, it's difficult to buy into it. And when I started walking, I literally had 400 Rand cash and an old camera. So by that time, my 30D probably had quite a few 100,000 photographs taken on that shutter. And the shutter button was giving me trouble. Just use a normal, like a shutter release to trigger the actual shutter, because the cable would still work, but the shutter didn't.
Oh.
So that's the pain of it. But the interesting thing is, when you go through that, when you have to struggle with money and you don't have the best equipment and all of that, but you still find a way to make it happen, you realize that eventually when you do have everything that you want and need, that maybe the equipment really didn't matter that much. It's more about the willingness to get out and do what you set out to do. Another photograph. I quite like silhouettes. I know I get a lot of grief from other photographers about silhouettes. I'm not sure why, but I guess I can understand that, it's kind of flat, very contrasty and so on, but I really enjoy the contrasty feel.
Absolutely. I love this one, especially with the sort of lead-in lines, and it's like it's all pointing in the direction of your walk. The clouds are pointing that way, the mountain range is pointing that way.
Yes. This particular day was extremely windy. This was in the Eastern Cape, I think between Port Alfred and Hamburg, if I remember correctly. And I was getting that extreme southeaster wind. So it's difficult to tell by looking at the photograph, but I'm leaning over forward just to be able to make any headway. You can also tell by this cirrus clouds that the wind is blowing in that direction, you know. And my camera was almost on the ground. I think I put it on my storm case, if I'm not mistaken. I just kind of propped it up on my storm case. So I often wouldn't use my tripod. And I did take a tripod. I'll get to the equipment just now, but I would often just prop my camera up because, you know, you don't want to take the backpack off. You don't want to stop. You don't want it to take any more of your energy because you're so tired of walking, but you still want that photograph. So I would often have very low angle photographs. This was taken with a wide angle lens. I think this was a 10-20 Sigma, if I'm not mistaken, something like that. And mind you, on the crop sensor. And then I would just put it like 2 meters away from me on a self timer, and then there we go. You know. There's another way of incorporating myself in the photograph. This would have been an okay photograph, but made quite interesting with me in the shadow. And this is the famous Cape Gallas lighthouse. This is before they plastered the sandstone, so you can actually still see the actual sandstone in this photograph. They finished plastering it a couple of years ago. It looks good now, but it looked more authentic then.
Yeah, I think it's a pity that they plastered over that.
Yeah, yeah. But then if they didn't, it might not have been there in 50 years' time, you know. So it's a catch-22. So I've photographed all the lighthouses in South Africa, some of them quite a few times. I love lighthouses. I don't know why. It might just be the symbolism behind them, but they're always in an interesting place. You know, they're somewhere on a cape or a point or a peninsula or an island or something. And obviously they emit light, so they look interesting as well. And they have these contrasty lines. So this photograph is taken at Cape Receive, basically the point of PE, I think.
I think that works really well as a silhouette myself.
Yeah.
So much for the silhouette haters.
Yes, right. I think it only works because you can still see some detail in the light itself. So in the bulb of the light. I was just perfect with the timing on that. There's another one I really can't remember where that is. That might be Eiservarkfontein or some obscure lighthouse like that. And then this one, this is supposed to be a very famous lighthouse, and very few people ever photograph it. And it's quite a pity. This is Cape Point Lighthouse. It's a very interesting story for those people that might not know. But so I don't know if you've ever been to Cape Point, Quentin, but if you go up to, you know, you can go up to the lighthouse. It's quite a climb, and then you get there, and you normally have boards of tourists. But that's not the lighthouse that they currently use or that they have been using. That one was built first, and then they realized that whenever they had storms and rain and bad sea conditions, they would need the lighthouse. But then that lighthouse, because it's so high, would be somewhere in the clouds, and it would be useless behind the clouds. So they literally built another one, just a couple of hundred, maybe a kilometer in front of it, right on the very end. It's an engineering marvel. I don't know how they did it. It's right on the peninsula's tip, which is amazing. But it's quite a walk to get down there. I don't think you're allowed, I don't know these days, I don't know if you're allowed to walk down there. I just kind of walked there one evening and got these photographs. Yeah. This is a dead gannet, and somehow this works for me. This is it's dead. There's no life in it anymore. It's submerged in the sand, and but there's beauty in that as well. It's quite elegant.
I love it. I think it's amazing. You know, it's one of the things that I kind of do my annual migration to the coast in December. And, you know, a lot of times you'll sort of walk on the coast and there'll be, you know, birds that have died for whatever reason, or, you know, maybe it's a seal or something. And I find a certain beauty in photographing them as well. So, I mean, for me, this is it's also just a beautiful photograph. The colors are so sort of nice and muted. It's really beautiful.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's unfortunate the gannets died during the sardine run. Well, not all of them, but quite a few of them. So they get so frenzied up that they'll literally break their wings diving into the water, and that's how many of them die. Yeah.
So Robin Rolf Wood says, such a powerful photograph of the gannet.
Ah, thank you. Wow, that's very kind of him. This is just an interesting rock formation. This is close to Dunnaby, close to Mossel Bay, I believe. I think this place is called Blombos or Lukombos, something like that. Whatever. It's amazing. It's quite big. Unfortunately, I don't have a photograph of me on it, but I would literally be like very small. And that just the hole alone is probably 3 meters high. So you never see photographs of it. I haven't seen anyone photograph it. This is the cave at Arniston, Barneskrans, right at the very back. It's the easiest to get in there when it's low tide. Obviously a very big cavernous cave. I think the biggest sea cave that we have along our coastline. And again, off-camera flash. No, I'm lying. This is not off-camera flash. This was painting with light. So that's another love that I have, is painting with light. Whenever I get the chance, I'll whip out my flash, my torch, and paint. So you can see the pebbles or the rocks in the foreground have little highlights, and that's all painted with light. But then obviously I'm losing the detail in the back. Yeah. Another interesting rock formation close to the southernmost point.
Oh, I love that. That's very cool.
This one or the previous one?
The one of the rock.
All right. Yeah. And interestingly enough, I've been here quite a few times before or since, and I haven't been able to locate this rock again, which is strange. I don't know, maybe I took a different route or something. It might have broken off. I don't know. Yeah, just for interest's sake.
Lindsay says it looks like a petrified wave, you know, sort of crashing on the rock.
It does. Yeah. And this is also quite a big formation. That's at least 4 or 5 meters high.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. So this photograph is taken on the west coast. The west coast is very close to my heart. I love the west coast for many reasons. I think mostly for its contrasty isolation. You have this extreme heat of the inland, almost desert-like conditions, and then you have this intense cold of the Atlantic Ocean that meets that intense heat. So it's misty almost daily, and if you stay on the coast or close to the coastline within a couple of 100 meters, you have cool conditions to walk in, which makes walking relatively pleasant along the Namaqualand coastline. And this continues all the way into Namibia as well. In fact, Namibia is even cooler along some sections. Yeah. This particular photograph was taken of my poncho. So along this part, I wouldn't be able to have a lot of water. So in fact, my wife walked this part with me. So this is the last 400 odd kilometers that she walked with me from Lambert's Bay all the way to the northernmost border at Alexander Bay. And we didn't have the capacity to carry enough water and food for the entire section, because some of those sections you need about 5 days of water. and that's pretty much on the limit of what you can carry. And then you throw in the camera gear, and you throw in, you know, whatever else you need, and it becomes quite a tall order. So we decided to ditch the tent, which was quite an extreme decision to make, but it worked out for us quite well. I remember one evening while camping like this, so you can't see this, but on the other side of this poncho, it's literally just an overhang. It's completely open on the one side. So I would wedge her into the corner so she felt safe, I guess. But the one evening I woke up and I needed to go pee or whatever, and I took my torch, and when I turned the torch on, I just saw 6 or 7 sets of eyes staring at me. I'm like, what on earth? What could this be? And it was very hard for me to tell because my torch wasn't very bright. And eventually I figured out that it was African wildcats. And they apparently wanted something. They probably smelt tuna or something. I don't know. Yeah. Here's another photograph. Thank you. This is another photograph of a cross along the south coast. Also, obviously, off-camera flash. And then this is something else, death again. I'm just going to speed it up a little bit so that we can actually get to the good stuff. Another love of mine is wrecks. I love wrecks. I mean, you can't go to the South African coastline without seeing a wreck somewhere. Our coastline has hundreds of wrecks. Many people don't realize that. So this is along the west coast. These are all different wrecks. And then look at that there. Quentin, have you ever seen anything like this?
That's ridiculous. Eh?
Yeah, yeah. So this is normal. This is the amount of seals that you can see on the west coast. There's a colony of about 500,000 apparently. It's difficult to know exactly, but about 500,000 close to Clencia. This is a photograph of that.
It must be quite interesting because, you know, you've got long sections of coastline where there's nothing, and then you come across a colony like this, and you can, you know, you can't walk across the beach, you know, without standing on something, you know. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, you have hotspots. So while you're walking, obviously you can kind of anticipate this, and you know that there's a seal colony, so you look forward to it, and then you spend more time there if you can. Although the smell at this particular place is so horrific that you don't want to spend more time there than you have to. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that's a crazy formation. It's obviously caused by drought or something. It's a dry. I think it was just a dry. It's not even a dam. It's just like a little pool that had water and then didn't have water anymore. Yeah. It's a little ghost crab. This is back on the Natal coast again. I tried to get this photographs for days, but ghost crabs are very fast, and they see you coming from about 20 meters away. I managed to corner this one because they can't really walk forwards or backwards. They can only go sideways. And this one, for some reason, couldn't go. I think it could only go left. It couldn't go right. So I just cornered it in, and I crawled behind it. My lens is almost in the wet sand, and managed to get it. Also off-camera flash again.
That is so cool. I love it.
Thank you. Just the wild coast, the typical cows on the beach. And then my feet. This is a little collage I made of feet in different places. You can see like the second photograph, my foot's all swollen up. And also in the middle row, right on the right side, that's what my foot looked like when I had the injury.
It's like one of those Instagram feeds, you know, where you have you know, like the sexy feet, but this is the alternate version.
the not sexy feet. Yeah.
the working feet.
Yeah. Okay, and then this is after that walk. So this is just to show what I also enjoy doing. I have a intense love of nature. I know a lot of photographers say that, but I'm the kind of guy that will go out into the mountain and just spend a night or a couple of nights. And I love animals, but I feel that wildlife photography is so difficult to find a new angle that hasn't been seen. And this particular photograph was taken with a wide angle lens, a 1740 on a 5D Mark II on a tripod, and then I had a remote trigger. So these monkeys were vivid monkeys. They were harassing us at a campsite, and I figured let them work for us a little bit, let them pose. And I managed to get this photograph. I was extremely lucky to get it. It was, as I took a photograph, the shutter sound alerted them, and they looked at the camera. So before that, they were just doing whatever they were doing. And then they both looked at the camera, and then I took the second shot, and that was this one. And you can tell that there's a very soft light on the right. So that's, I think that's just a brolly with a flash, you know, a speed light. And then there's a hair light that I put in a tree somehow, probably with a small gorilla pod or something. And the small monkey in this photograph ran off with that second light after I took this photograph. I really got a big fright. I thought I might lose it, but it dropped it and I caught it. And yeah.
I was just going to say how beautifully you balanced the sun with your off-camera flash, and then you went and ruined it by saying that you got two flashes there.
Yeah, no, unfortunately the sun wasn't really reaching the forest floor in this place, so I couldn't really do that.
No, I love it. It is so cool, so cool.
Yeah. But obviously a very extravagant setup. You don't normally do that, but it worked in this regard. Let me continue, Quentin.
Yeah, I'm going to stop interrupting you.
All right. Sorry for talking too much. I'm just gonna talk while I run through some stuff. Yeah.
If it does, because sometimes Facebook plays along and sometimes it doesn't. But if it does cut off at 60 minutes. Don't stress, because I'm still recording it, so don't stress. So I mean, let's go through it to try and finish. But if it runs a little bit over, I'm sure it's not a problem. So I'll stop now.
Right.
Go.
Okay. All right. So in 2018, my wife and I decided to do a walk along the Namibian coastline. At first, it would just be the Namibian coastline, and then I thought, so just to put this in perspective, this is literally 8 years after I finished my initial walk. The initial walk took the better part of a year to finish. We got married in the meantime, and life happened. I worked as a commercial photographer. We lived abroad. And now we're in 2018. In fact, I got the idea to do this walk way back in 2014. And I didn't really have the extra funds, because it's quite an expensive endeavor to walk Namibia, because you need a whole lot of different gear, and I wanted to do it differently. So we saved up money, we worked abroad, we taught English in South Korea, came back, and we started this walk. And instead of just doing the Namibian coastline, we decided, let's start all the way back at the southernmost point of Africa, in South Africa, past Cape Town, do all of the west coast of South Africa again, and then hopefully by the time you reach Namibia, you'll be fit and, you know, used to walking far. So that was the logic. I know it's funny logic to walk an extra 1,000 kilometers, but that's what I decided we would do. Yeah. So this is the basic setup that we started off with, and I would really like to show people, because a lot of people want to photograph their hikes and so on, but it's difficult. It's a schlep if you're having to wear a rucksack and then put it down, take out your camera, change lenses. It just doesn't work. So after a lot of testing and seeing what works best, I've come up with what works best for me by far, at least along the coast. So you get like the Peak Design clips that can easily clip your camera on, you get all these interesting things. The main concern that I have with those is your camera is exposed to the sun, first of all, and also to the wind and the salt air. And that's probably okay if you're doing a weekend meander, but if you're going to be doing it for half a year and your camera is exposed 24/7, it's not going to be good. So I'm using this Think Tank. It's a Think Tank 20. Yeah, it's a digital holster 20, and it can extend the bottom. It's quite a nifty design. And you can see that's what's in the photograph. I just have a little raincoat that's included in the bag, and that goes on the front. And whenever I need my camera, it's right there. I don't have to take my bag off or anything.
How do you charge your batteries?
Yeah, so batteries last very long. You know, your Canon, I use Canon, your Canon batteries, unless you may be using mirrorless, if you have 5 spare batteries, you're good for a week. Obviously, once you start shooting video, which we did, it eats into the batteries again, but most of the time you can charge somewhere every week, most of the time. You'll see later on, I'll show you some photographs where we had to use the sun panel to charge our stuff. So I had a sun panel that would charge a battery that had an inverter built into the system that would be able to charge everything. And I actually carried little, you know, your little hard drives with me. So I had two, I think 3 gig hard drives or something that would be copies of whatever we did throughout the day, and I would back it up daily. I was quite paranoid about that, and then leave copies of that whenever I could with people, and then collect them later, because you don't want to lose it.
Yeah, absolutely, because that's every one of those images would then be, you know, lost forever.
Totally, yeah, totally. Yeah, I had a little cheap laptop. It's literally like the size of an A5, roughly. And that would just allow me to transfer the photographs. I know you get like these digital library things that would also allow that, but I wanted that capability to also type and write a story and whatever. So we opted for that option. It's also a cheaper option. Yeah, so that's how we started. Let me just go back a second. That's how we started with backpacks, and that's how we did the South African section. That's about 1,100 kilometers from the southernmost point to the Orange River. And then the real fun started into Namibia. So we had to take a trolley, which I designed and had a friend help me build. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that happened afterwards. But to make a long story short, we pulled our gear on this 4-wheeled trolley. In this photograph, it looks like it has 2 wheels, but it's 2 wheels side to side. You'll probably see later. And that allowed us to carry way more gear. So this is when we had the sun panels, more food. We had food for up to a month. You could have more water. We had a desalinator, which allowed us to make drinking water out of seawater. A lot of work. It works as a pump action device, but it worked.
I suppose that's the thing, you know, when you get to Namibia, there's a lot of you know, long sections where, you know, you don't have places to replenish or anything like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, you have to look after yourself if everything else fails, you know. Yeah. This is just taken probably Milnerton Beach or something. This is when we still had backpacks and not the trolley. So you can see what the trolley would have been used for. So I just picked up an old piece of bodyboard or something, and I pulled it behind me with the extra water. This was a particularly long section, I think 3 days. So we just took the weight off our backs and pulled it much easier that way. Luxembourg, the famous colored huts. And then this is the last section. This is still in South Africa. This is the very last day, I believe, of the South African section, just before we reached the Orange River. So you might notice that we're walking on the road here and not on the coastline. That's because you have the diamond mines along that part of the coastline, and you're not allowed to walk there. Yeah, we're going up the Orange River towards Sandling's Drift, where we crossed into Namibia. And
Tell you what, it's a lot of wide open spaces. I mean, what do you sort of go through mentally when you sort of you know, it's hot, you know, tired, thirsty, and the road is just going shore into the distance for as far as you can see.
Yeah, Quentin, let me tell you, whatever you can think of that might go through your mind, that goes through your mind plus 100 times more. Because you have more than 8 hours a day of walking. So it's very monotonous often. What I found quite interesting was the more sparse the landscape was, the closer I came to myself. And without getting too philosophical, but the less I could see, the less I could be entertained by the scenery, the more I had to go deep inside. And I loved that. It's a very fleeting sensation, but I had a week of really amazing mental space. I think both Lauren and I, my wife and I, we got to a place in our relationship and also with ourselves that was, I think very few people ever touch it. You can probably relate it to a pilgrimage or something like that. It's on par with that, certainly.
It's
but it is
cool.
Fleeting.
Just I suppose in relation to that, Robin wants to know, how many kilometers did you average per day?
Yeah, so that depended on the terrain that we would walk. If it was very soft sand, we would never walk less than 24 kilometers. So it can get very soft sand, be very soft sand or very rocky or whatever. So 24 was our bottom limit, I would say. And then we walked up to 46 kilometers. That would be an extreme day. That's not sustainable. Don't go and do that. You'll do it once and then the next day you won't want to walk again. So the average was in Namibia with the trolley. Remember, it's much easier to pull the trolley than it is to carry it on your back. With the trolley, the average was about 32 kilometers, 34 thereabouts. Yeah. So this is along the Skeleton Coast part, north of Henty's Bay, I believe. This is a photograph I took with the drone. So I actually took a drone with me, but only for the very last section of Namibia. And I do some drone photography, although I have a love-hate relationship with drone photography. It's difficult to, you know, I'd rather take a photograph using my own camera than fly a drone.
That's beautiful.
But it obviously allows you to get shots like this that you wouldn't get otherwise. Some long exposure stuff. So I love long exposure work. I use a 10-stop ND for this, I believe. It's probably, this isn't too long. This is probably like 15 seconds or so. Another drone photograph. A selfie of us. Some salt pans in Namibia. Fascinating places to be.
That's cool.
And that's quite an important part for me, is to always find a new way of interacting with your surroundings. I think in travel photography in particular, you know, you've seen these places a million times on Instagram, but how do you interact with these places in a new way? I'll get to some photographs later on, I hope, if we have time. That will give you a different idea of that. Some painting with light. There's an interesting photograph of a baobab tree. We just arrived and I said, Lauren, let's quickly take this photograph. I knew I needed the silhouette, once again, the silhouette thing. And then later that evening, I photographed the same tree, and it's a completely, if I scroll between the two, it's a completely different scene, as you can tell. And this is just painted with light, so this is just a normal torch reflected. I believe I reflected this against my shirt or something to make it soft, and then I would kind of walk around to make the emitted light bigger, a bigger source, you know.
That's beautiful. It's amazing how, you know, looking at the same subject, you know, two different ways at two different times of the day can have such dramatically different results, because they're both beautiful in their own rights.
Yeah, absolutely. Very true. And this is obviously taken with a long lens. This is a wide lens. I basically changed everything that I could change about those two photographs. A little Kofomandir on Lawrence Foot. This is up the west coast. So that little tent was our home for the best part of 6 months. Here's an example of what I was talking about earlier, interacting with your surroundings. So, you know, you're on your way to Luderitz. You see, this is literally all you see. There's a sign. Wow, that's the best thing that happened to us all day, because there's really nothing else to see. And I thought, I'm not just going to take a selfie next to the sign. I'm going to do something that's a little different. Here's another example of that. This is all the water we needed for one section. This is that earlier photograph that I showed you, where I was spilling it on the bodyboard. And without me in the background, it would have been a good photograph as well, but this makes it eye-catching, I believe. The plastic pollution along the coastline is a big problem. And we actually documented the plastic pollution along the way, and I was astonished, to say the least. We all have a responsibility to make a change, and I believe that corporations have an even bigger responsibility. This is not going to change just by you taking your 2-liter bottle to a recycling place. What is put on the shelves has to be changed, period. Yeah. This is actually in a national park. This is the West Coast National Park. Can you believe it?
Oh, it's crazy.
This is a African black oyster catcher. We counted them along the way. There's an awesome photograph. A beautiful moment that I'll never forget. Just this extreme storm that came. And to be honest, you don't really want to experience a storm like this in the Namib Desert, just because they get so rough, so windy, so they can literally tear your tent apart. But just before the storm hit us, we had this beautiful moment watching it approach. It's really so much I can say, Quentin. I mean, obviously you guys are seeing many of these photographs for the first time. I don't really know where to start or where to finish.
I mean, that's the thing, you know, you've seen them, you obviously experienced it doing the whole thing, but you've seen them, you know, many times, and you know, I can only imagine that each one of them could get 10 minutes worth of you know, discussion and philosophizing and etc. You know,
Absolutely.
it must just be the most amazing thing to create such fantastic memories.
Yeah, I'm currently busy working on a couple of episodes. It's probably going to be 5 episodes by the looks of it. A documentary, but split up in episodes about our walk. But I'm editing it by myself, so it's taking forever. It's already taken me a year. And I'm using the lockdown for that as well. So the lockdown is good for something at least. And I'm so looking forward to sharing that story with other people. Because stills are wonderful, but you can only say so much with the still. Having video is a beautiful medium as well.
Absolutely, and one of the things that that I'll be sharing afterwards is the link to the video that you provided for. Was it the second one, or no? It was the first one. No, it was the second.
It was the second one. Yeah. It's the second one. It's a very quick overview of the entire walk. People will love that. So definitely recommend staying tuned to that. If you, for some reason, can't find it, it's on YouTube as well, called Dare to Walk. It's just a 5-minute overview of the entire walk.
Yeah, it'll definitely give you an indication of what it's like.
I'm just running through some photographs of different roads we saw.
Sure.
It was a windy day.
Hard, that must be hard. I mean, I can imagine that, you know, those types of landscapes where it's flat for hundreds of kilometers and the wind is just blowing for hundreds of kilometers, you're going to be sandblasted for sure.
Yeah, totally. I was gritting sand between my teeth for a week after this particular sandstorm. I'm not kidding. Like literally sand cones, grains coming out of my teeth for a week afterwards. I think that's it for now.
No, that's very, very cool. You know, Sue Noble de Klerk has just said, amazing photos. What an incredible experience you've had. We've such a beautiful country, and you've captured it in each and every photo. And I mean, I wholeheartedly agree with that. You know, there's something about them that I suppose it's also landscape photography for me. It's especially of our country. It sort of speaks to me. And you know, you get the goosebumps running up and down your arm, and it's just this warm and fuzzy thing. And we certainly have got such a beautiful country. And you know, even if it is pictures of your feet that are all dusty and cracked and whatever, and it's just I think it just tells such an amazing story of the whole trip and our country and the opportunities that we have.
Absolutely, and I would definitely recommend that people. I mean, we don't all have a year or 6 months to go on a long walk, but you do have a weekend. Take your bike, take your camera, go explore. There's very little you can lose. We are very fortunate as South Africans to live where we do. And I think if people realized what we have right under our feet, they would be going out there more often, especially as photographers. You know, I live in the Western Cape. And not a day goes by that I don't think, sheesh, I should be there right now, or there right now, or there right now, you know. So just go take the moment, take a morning, and get out with your camera and see what you can create.
Absolutely. I'm just going to stop the sharing there so that we're on the same screen. Yeah, I mean, it's the opportunities are there. One of the problems again with the December annual pilgrimage, blah blah blah. I'm driving and I see, oh, hold on, but you know, you stopped 10 minutes ago, and the family's starting to get a little irritated with this. So I mean, I can sort of you know, feel the need to take the pictures, but you know, I almost need to say, well, okay, let's dedicate this weekend or whatever it is, go there, and that's what we do, because it makes it so much easier.
What I've found for myself, it works really well, is having a buddy that can go with you, and a photography buddy is even better. Just taking a week. So I'll often go out with fellow photographers, and we'll say, look, I have this block of, let's say, 3 or 4 days, no shoots booked. Let's go do something, you know, and it doesn't have to be far. You just say, let's go to Mozambique if you're up in Gauteng, or let's go up the West Coast or Namaqualand or whatever, and keep it open-ended. Don't say, oh, we have to be and this is where we're sleeping. Keep it open-ended. That's the best way to really experience authentic travel photography and authentic experiences, really.
Absolutely. Do they have to stay in the same red tent with you?
If they want to. I've had some interesting comments about me. Apparently, I'm not I'm very smelly after a long day's walk.
I reckon that's a general comment. You know, if you're going to walk for 35 k's,
let me tell you, I never smelled my wife once on that entire trip.
Oh man, that's very cool. I'm sure that when she's listening now, she's gonna, that was the right thing to say. I'm just having a look here and see if there's any other questions here. No, I think that's another one saying, Tony saying, thanks, Erlo, amazing story, brilliant images of our country. And I think there's been a lot of those, and I'm really glad that Linda mentioned your name, and that I could track you down and get you to come and talk on the Hunters of Light. Because it's these kind of stories that both inspire and motivate. And a lot of us are sort of photographers that are maybe more commercial, and we don't get to go and do this kind of thing. And I think it's important that we get exposed to different genres and different experiences, so that we can just get out there and go. Make plans. Set aside 3 or 4 days to go and lie in a red tent with a smelly fellow photographer. It's important. And I really want to say thank you very much to you for taking the time and putting the presentation together and sharing it with us. It's been absolutely amazing. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Quentin. Thank you for making the time for me.
No, it's a pleasure. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put that link on into the discussion afterwards. And then I'll also put it on when it goes up onto YouTube. I didn't want to preempt it and show everyone the thing. I wanted you to sort of talk it through, and then they can watch it afterwards. So I'll sort that out for you now.
Thank you so much, and I hope the viewers enjoy that.
I think they did, based on the comments. Well done, mates. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you, Quentin.
Okay.
Go well, eh?
Cheers. Bye-bye.